Let's create a budget. Let's get out of debt. Let's build wealth. Okay guys, in the last video we looked at profit and loss statement. So in this video, let's go ahead and look at the balance sheet. So looking at the same example, we have 7,510 in income or revenue coming in to the household, and then you have your expenses and everything going out. So again, make sure that this turns green. Make sure that these are all green. You know, we do this just like in all the previous videos on our creating a budget. You go through one day out of the week, check yes as these bills are paid, and then once they've all been paid, click that yes button to turn this one green. Okay, so if we look at the balance sheet basically, you know, tells you your assets and your liabilities. So fixed assets, automobiles, mortgage, and investments, there's 276,114, and then you have your income, cash on hand, 7,510. So if we look at automobiles, here we have 25,000 value of the car, 250,000 on the mortgage, and then the credit card. So I had left this blank because I kind of wanted to show y'all on the balance sheet how this kind of adds up. So, you know, your assets is everything that you own and what they're worth. So 283,000, right? You have 283,000. So let's say that this credit card had a value, American Express, you had 5,000, right? So that 283,000 would now be 288,000. So that's kind of why I left that blank. I kind of wanted to show you how it kind of adds up the assets as it goes along. Okay, so automobile, the house, you know, 250, automobiles, investments, 1,114, and then you have, you know, your credit card now, its value is 5,000. So what this does is, you know, as far as it basically, it always has to balance out. So you have 25,000 in automobiles, but you owe 20,000. So 20,000 is what you owe, and 25,000 is the value of it. So let me use the mortgage to make this easier, because that argument always comes up, is your house an asset? Well, the house itself is an asset, and the liability or the loan is what is your liability. So technically you have an asset, 250,000, but on that you owe, on the mortgage you owe 200,000. So really your asset is $50,000. That's your asset, but that's the way it looks at it. It basically takes your total. So what this is basically doing is, say with this automobile, 25,000, and you owe 20,000, is putting 5,000 into equity, right? You have 5,000 worth of equity in this car, and then in the house you have 50,000 equity. So that's 55,000, and then the 1,114 is the investments and what they're worth. So that's the 51,614, and then the other equity will come from what's left over between accounts receivable, accounts repayable, and the equity you have in the credit card from what's due and what you owe. So it always balances out. It's not really showing it here, but basically what it's doing, the accounts receivable, 7,510, this is money that's owed to you. So basically, if you're looking at your family as a business, that money that's owed to you is the income from your job that's coming in. So 7,510, and then accounts payable is including everything you pay. You know, a balance sheet, you're not really looking at you're not really looking at like monthly payments and stuff. You're looking at the total, and technically this is the monthly payment. This is basically what it's taken to run your family. So this would be all of your bills, your mortgage, automobile, your utilities, everything that's going out. It includes the principal and the interest. So 7,510 with 6,370 going out. So if you took your total income coming into the house, that's 7,500, I believe it was, with your income plus $10 in investments, and then everything that's going out, 6,370, a total of all bills going out, you have left over 1,140. And if you look back at January, that's basically, that is going into your checking account, which is on the balance sheet owners. That would be part of reserves. So this is reserves, is basically used to, reserves is used to fund projects, or like if you wanted to start a business, you'll be using reserves, or any investments that you're making, you're using your reserves for that. So higher the reserves, the better. I mean, if we're looking at, like I said, if you're looking at your family like a business, then outside investors will be looking at you, which is basically credit card companies, mortgage, lenders, banks. They're looking at how well you do. So, another thing to tell the strength of your family is how well it's being managed and how much. Basically, the higher that this amount is that's coming in, that's not part of your income, whatever this total right here in purple, the higher this is, and the closer or over this is, the better and more strength that this family has. And this is why I say you're learning about business, because, if someone's looking at this balance sheet, they're looking at, okay, you owe 6,370 a month. That's what's going out. But in your reserves, you only have 1,140. So this is kind of where you'll start seeing management styles if you're looking at other people, because you have choices here, right? I mean, you can build up this reserve to make sure you last, right? We're in a time right now where a lot of businesses, because of the virus and everything that's going on, and businesses are struggling to get out. Is because, you'll hear that, oh, Amazon is fine, oh, Microsoft is fine. They have enough cash on hand to get through this without a problem. They have enough cash on hand to keep paying their dividends. That's because their reserves are high. So, this is what I struggle with it. If you're a small business and you're not looking, you're not making tons of money, this is where it's kind of a risk factor, right? Do you use this reserves? Do you use it to buy more and more stock, or more and more investments to bring in to get this number higher? Or do you keep it, at a certain point to make sure that you can cover? That's why, if you watch all the other videos, there's always a required checking account amount. That's just enough to cover you. But really, this reserve is there to protect you. And this reserve, if we're looking at your balance sheet, we know that if you lose your job, right? Because we can tell from this balance sheet here that your income, right, is 7,500, and you only got 1,000 in reserve. So this accounts payable 6,370. You're not even going to last a month if you lose your job. Yeah, you got some equity you can liquidate and eventually, but that most of this stuff is, it takes a while to, it's not easily converted into cash. That's why it's in fixed assets. You got credit card, you got 5,000. If we look at, let's look at it this way, that 5,000 is not gonna last you that long. And when we look at the cash flow statement, when we see that, hey, they're paying all their bills with credit card and they're not even using cash, we really know that you're going to be in trouble. So this balance sheet kind of, focus on your reserves. Make sure that your reserves is high enough. You got to look at it this way. You need 6,370 to survive 1 month. So you might want to build this reserve up higher and higher. Yeah, you got a lot of equity, but without the reserves, the reserves is basically the blood. Let's say this was a human body, your reserves would be your bloodline. So focus on getting your reserves up. It's to a comfortable, if you want 3 months worth, get 18,000 in reserves and then start producing. And that's where I really like this, because it really shows the struggle, right? If you have no money really in the first place coming in, and you're like, what do you do, right? Because in order to get more, especially if you're already dug in a hole and you got a lot of debt, it's hard to get out of it. It's all a check and balance, right? Because what do? Do you risk it and then you keep doing this, or are you chucking this 1140? Are you taking all your reserves and chucking it at debt? That's why, guys, follow this step by step. Go through the creating a budget and understand what I'm doing here, because what I'm trying to do is to make sure that your blood never runs out, right? And that's where the family bank comes in. I didn't talk about much about this family bank, but part of this reserve should be going to this bank. And that's kind of like, I guess it would be like a transfusion or something. It's that extra blood bank. That's your blood bank. This family bank, that's your blood bank. So if you start running low on your blood or something, you're spewing, or your blood spewing out, you can replenish it through the family bank. So guys, I hope this kind of starts to open your eyes a little bit as far as how these statements and how looking at family like a business could really benefit someone and help them to increase. If you really take this seriously, and that profit and loss, you're trying to increase the net profit. You're looking at where you're at, and you're trying to reduce financial costs, reduce operating costs, and boost up cost of sales, because cost of sales is what's going to generate and make this net profit go higher. It's also going to make this total revenue increase, right? And then by looking at the balance sheet, know that you want to, looking at this, that you want to make sure that your reserves are high enough to keep you sustained. And when I talk about family bank, in this, the family bank is running as, I run it as cash, because really this is liquid as a checking account. So let's say this was 0 and you put that 1,140 in your family bank, right? Or let's just do 1,000 in the family bank, and then that should leave us what, 140 in cash flow, right? We check to make sure that we did it wrong, because if you didn't put that back in there, it's gonna make sure that it all comes out correct. That family bank is, you got $1,000. Let's put that, so that when that goes to principal, it'll make this value $1,000. That's why I blocked that, so I don't mess up the coding on it. So it's so easy to do. So 1,000 now in your family bank, and there's principal and interest. Understand, when you take a loan, if it's going straight in, it's going to be value. If you take a loan, then you would have principal and interest. And I put policy payment. You can name this wherever you want, or policy loan, but let's say you're putting that in the family bank. And that's why it's always good to have a little bit going to the bank, because even though it's as liquid as a checking account, it's not like you have a debit card to it. You would have to transfer it and you won't spend it as much. And I thought about this as equity, or whether to do it as owner's fund. And on the balance sheet, it goes into reserve, because basically that's what it is. It is reserve. So by having that strong foundation, having that bloodline there, and it's what an irony that, bloodline, and it is part of your bloodline because it will be passed down. But there you go, guys. So that's the way you can look at the balance sheet for your family. And just another note on this, actually I'll talk about it in the next video. So guys, I thank you for watching. If you found value in this, I appreciate a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.